Imagine having so much to say, but the words won't come out. This is a problem with stroke survivors. And for many people, it can be they can't find the right words, they can't speak, or even a topic never really discussed, they don't have the brain power. They'll get up and be like, today I have to call this person or I have to tell this person something, and they completely forget they have to do that. It just leaves their mind as quick as it gets there. They don't have the bandwidth to keep that thought. And all of a sudden it can go by for like 3 weeks and they haven't communicated. And here's part of the big problem with that is when you're dealing with caregivers, and this is not to point a finger at anybody, but you think they understand and everybody around you understands your situation. They don't because they've never gone through it. You think you're communicating with them, you're not. It's almost being very basic that you have to say, here's exactly what's going on and communicate this to them in a very drawn out way that communicates what exactly you want to say so they understand. You can't just assume they're going to understand your situation, even though you assume they do, because they still look at things like it's the old you, and there's some brain issues that go on with healing that it takes time to recover that ability. And that's giant because you always want that clear line of communication. But it also falls on those around you, the caregivers and those also just friendships, things like that, to know they understand. They look at it just like it's a simple injury that you're going to recover from and move in that linear path where you'll make that steady recovery. That's not the case. You know that. And if you don't know it at the moment, you're going to start to realize that. But you need to communicate that to them, to anybody around you, that here's what you're going through. You're not intentionally not communicating with them. You think you are, and things leave your mind sometimes as quick as they get there. A great example of this, it's not really about communication. I can wake up and open my eyes and be like, got to get in the shower. And next thing I know, I can smell myself. It's like 3 days later, and I'm like, I haven't showered. I just forgot to do that. Or I'll get up and walk to the kitchen to get a glass of water. And completely in the course of walking those 20, 30 feet from the bedroom to the kitchen, forget why I even went there and detour and do something else. It's just weird. But it's the way the brain heals, and it's a slow process, and it's a roller coaster ride. So one thing you definitely need to do with communication is make sure I would say over communicate. Treat it on a very basic level, even though you assume that they understand. Really be very basic about it so they do understand where you're coming from. And that puts the ball, I would say, in your court to communicate, but in their court to understand. And encourage them to ask questions if they don't understand. Now, when it comes to not being able to find the words, not being able to speak, things like that, what people don't really understand is that you can not find the words, but internally you're finding the words. You're just not enunciating them. So pen and paper, hand cues, typing things on your phone. So there's clarity and making sure they understand what you're trying to communicate. Because sometimes that is an effect, that area of your brain's affected, you can't find those words. Simple words like yes and no, maybe. You know, do as much nonverbal cueage as you have to really help them to understand. It's on you to make sure they understand. And all the people I talk to, this is one of the biggest problems they have is they're like, nobody understands. But they can't understand where you're coming from because every stroke is not the same. It's your effects may be different than mine, than somebody down the block, than somebody around the corner. it's everybody's different and you recover at a different rate or different speed. You also have different things that are affected. Some people aren't affected much at all. Some people are affected greatly. Some people it takes years upon years to make progress. Some people it's overnight. But you've got to treat it, you as the stroke survivor have to treat it like it's the ball, it's on you to really explain where you're coming from so they understand. And then they can ask, you can always ask, do you understand where I'm coming from? And make sure they ask questions so that people around you do understand it. So there is that clear line of communication. Not as easy as it sounds. Um, it's really vital. I talk to so many people about this when I work with them, and they can do all the right therapy things, physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy things. That alone is not going to just make your recovery. It's being able to communicate where you're at, communicate what's going on with your therapy, and moving forward from there. But that social involvement, that communication with others around you is huge to your progress. Always make sure you take that time to communicate. I can't stress that enough. And whether it's from stroke fatigue, whether it's from a brain issue, whatever it may be, you need to really, I would say, over explain yourself. Not explain yourself to the point that you think it's understood, but over explain yourself in a simple level, on a simple level, that people will understand what you're saying and where you're coming from. And that way they can ask questions, they can be on the same page as you. They can understand that this isn't just like a strained knee or a broken arm or something like that that just heals. That the brain is a very, I would say, I use the term roller coaster ride, but it's up and down, and it's you move forward sometimes greatly, and sometimes it seems like you're moving backwards, but it just takes time. That's what it really is. And I've been lucky enough to really have the mindset and persistence to keep moving forward. Um, that's huge. Even when it doesn't seem like you're making progress, you should shoot to get 1% better every day. And it may be very little things, but they add up. Before you know it, a year later, you're so much farther ahead than you were a year before. So it's important to keep moving forward. Keep doing it, even if it's one more step in your physical therapy, even if it's having one more conversation a day with somebody, getting on a phone call and having that conversation, and really reading out loud. There's many things people get very weird about, that they think that reading out loud with nobody around is a very, it's kind of strange, but it will help you. And that's what this is all about, is you helping you to get better. People around you can only do so much. Like I've said before, physical therapy 2 to 3 times a week for 3 months is not going to get you better. Same with speech, same with occupational therapy. You need to build on this and have constant repetition. And that's what really breeds neuroplasticity. But that's a whole nother video. I've done some on that. I'll do more on that. But please, if you like what you're hearing, let me know in the comments what you want to hear in the description, what you want to hear, so I can focus on those areas. Like I said, I'm a stroke survivor as well, a 3 time stroke survivor, actually. I had 3 strokes in 1 week. So I took a very radical path to recovery with working with people I knew that could help me, and they were willing to do so. And I am forever grateful for that. My story, which gets a little deeper, I'm trying to wrap up the book because I've been encouraged to write a book about it. So as soon as that gets done, I'll let everybody know so they can read about it as well. But please just keep moving forward, and please let me know if you have any questions. Share this video if it helped you and you think it can bring value to others. Um, and also, I mean, subscribe, so you don't miss anything from me. I just really want to get this out there so people understand, because there's so many questions that people just, they don't really feel normal, I would say, or they feel embarrassed asking them about their recovery. But many people go through these same things with communication, and many other things, but communication specifically, and they don't get it. I see people get very angry. And the reason they get angry is because they can't really put it out there how they're feeling. And they get mad because people don't understand, but you're not giving them the information they need to understand. Communication is so vital to your recovery. I cannot overstate that. Again, like this video if you heard what you heard you liked, subscribe and share with others. And please let me know what other topics you want to hear. Thank you.